So I'm Grace Zhou from National Research Council Canada, and I'm presenting today is basically a field study, controlled intervention study we carried out in 2 schools in another province in Canada. And this work is really a joint effort by multiple teams. And we're from the Construction Research Center of NRC, and then we also have our local support from Medical Device Research Center in the location where these 2 schools are located. And also we collaborated with our colleagues from University Laval, particularly on the bioaerosol and bacteria and virus sampling from those 2 schools. And so first, a quick introduction to this school study. This school study was actually per the request of the provincial government reached out to us, want to do this test. It was in 2022 to 2023 when the impact of COVID was still quite significant. The provincial government was very determined to implement some measures in schools to protect the educators and the students. So they reached out to us to say, can we try to implement or install HEPA filter-based portable air cleaners in some schools and demonstrate whether there's a benefit on the health of the occupants in those schools. So after some design, we chose to do a controlled intervention study in 2 schools. We chose those 2 schools based on their ventilation systems. Both schools have 1 section which is older, without is only equipped with exhaust ventilation, and 1 section is modern with mechanical ventilation, MERV 6 to MERV 8 filters in the centralized ventilation system. Both schools, the size are quite similar, has 30 school classrooms, and the vintage of those 2 schools are quite similar, and the number of occupants in those 2 schools are very similar. And the intervention school, we installed 1 portable air cleaners with HEPA filter in each classroom and in some of the common spaces, such as the library. And in the control school, we had the baseline ventilation, as I described earlier. And the measurements we did in those schools, including particle concentration, PM1, PM2.5, PM10, CO2 concentration, power consumed by the portable air cleaners, and airborne and the surface sampling of respiratory viruses and bacteria, and also the aggregate absenteeism sick days recorded by the school board. And the timeline of the study is the first phase of the study was completed between April and June 2023. And then we changed the filter in 2023, August. And from September 2023 to June 2024, we did the 2nd phase of the measurement. The reason we did 2 phases is because the first phase, even through my communication with the school board and the provincial government, I said April to June, we're going to see a lot of window opening. And then it's really difficult for us to say, to draw conclusive conclusions on whether the portable air cleaners, the efficacy or the benefit, because the ventilation rate will be very hard to control. And I showed a map of Canada on the top corner here, and the location of this study of the schools showed as the green star here. And typically during summertime and April to June, we're approaching summer, then the temperature is milder. So we decided, we should do another longer term study to have the full image. And then for the bacteria virus sampling, we did that testing in March 2024. That's because in March, the temperature at this location is still pretty low. During our measurement period, during that week, the approximate temperature outdoors was -10 degrees Celsius. So we suspect like very little chance for the students and educators to open the room. So what have we measured and what kind of sensors we used? So we actually installed outdoor air quality sensor on the rooftop of the 2 schools. And we also have in each of the indoor space, including the hallway, including all the classrooms. In each classroom, we have 2 indoor air quality sensor. We also use the AirThings sensor. But those 2 sensors are primarily to record CO2, particulate matter, and RH, and the temperature. And when we deployed the portable air cleaner, one of the focuses is to control the flow rate to at approximately 2.5 air exchange rate delivered by the portable air cleaner. We measure the flow rate coming out from the portable air cleaner. But another focus is really to control the added noise to the classroom, because the last thing we want to see is we put a portable air cleaner in the classroom and then we recognize it's being turned off because it's too noisy. So when we measure the noise level in the classroom, with the portable air cleaner turned on, the noise level was below 54 dBA. And then we have a whole bunch of controlled scenarios for the portable air cleaner, including some of the portable air cleaner were put on timer, some of them were not. And then we also measure the airflow rates from the centralized HVAC system. And then we did all those sampling. I'll get into the bacteria and the virus sampling later in my presentation. So the results and the discussion session I would like to present following CO2, PM2.5, virus and biomarker, and then the absenteeism due to illness. So first, let's take a look at the CO2. So those are the time series of CO2 data during the 1 week that we did the virus and the bacterial sampling. And the focus of this slide, one thing, very strikingly, the CO2, as James also mentioned, I believe, and that the CO2 is completely correlated to the presence of occupants. And you can see 8 o'clock students, educator come in, and 4 o'clock, and they leave the classroom, and then the CO2 decay. And the second thing I want to draw your attention to is if you look at the top left, the CO2 in the control school, and the occupants number would affect the CO2 concentration. The second thing is the old session versus the new session. The blue line is the old session. The newer session is the gray and the orange line. You can definitely see the ventilation, the impact on the indoor CO2 concentration. So I drew a red line in all the charts here. The red line is corresponding to if we follow ASHRAE 62.1 for ventilation procedure, and the estimated CO2 in the classrooms, given the age of the students and the number of students, we're probably going to see about 900 ppm indoor compared to outdoors. So meaning indoor should be 900 ppm higher than the outdoor CO2 concentration. The CO2 concentration outdoors according to our sensor is about 450 ppm. So you can see the red line, it represents, if we follow the ASHRAE standards, this is what you are going to expect the CO2 level is at. So it's pretty much comparable, I would say, for those schools. And the other 2 charts are for the intervention school. So in the intervention school, again, the older session, seemingly the CO2 is a bit higher than the CO2 measured in the newer session. And also we see we are not expecting the operation of the portable air cleaner to have any much impact on the CO2 level, which is validated by the data. And another part I want to use this slide to show is the school classroom, the CO2 concentration offers offered us another way of looking at the data is after the class time, after the school time, all the educators and the students leave the classroom, the CO2 presents a decay curve. If we do the decay curve fitting, we can actually use this data to find the approximate ventilation rate using the decay curve. So that's when we did a little bit curve fitting and to look for the air exchange rate based on the CO2 decay after school. So the top one is the intervention school data. We have about 60 sensors, and we also have the approximate average air exchange rate in this room, in the intervention school is 0.73, and in the control school is 0.76. And then if we want to move on to the PM 2.5 concentration, what this slide is trying to show is the school in the control versus intervention school in the older session. I would say the PM 2.5 in the two schools is pretty comparable, no matter is the older session or the new session. And what we're really also trying to compare is if we have the CO2 decay, the ACH calculated based on the CO2 decay, is that correlated to the control and the intervention school, the PM 2.5 indoor data? We didn't really see a correlation between that, but we do see in the intervention school, because of the operation of the portable air cleaners, we do have the PM 2.5 is a bit lower, but I do want to mention the measurement accuracy at this level of the PM concentration. We need to consider that. And as James mentioned, I also included the WHO PM 2.5 guideline here, and you can see during this measurement period in March 2024, the PM 2.5 level was quite a bit lower than the WHO guideline. And the outdoor PM 2.5 monthly average in March 2024 was 3.6 microgram per cubic meter. And I want to, previously, I also gave another presentation, it's summarizing the 2023 measurement data. And one thing we noticed in 2023 June, we actually had widespread wildfire events across the country. And on one day, we did map out the data, outdoor versus indoor PM1 and PM 2.5. On this particular day, May 16th, 2023, we actually measured the outdoor PM 2.5 concentration was over 30 microns per cubic meter. And you can see the portable air cleaner in the intervention school actually made a difference in the indoor PM 2.5 concentration. As demonstrated, the intervention school, the PM 2.5 was below 10 microgram per cubic meter, versus in the intervention school, we have about 15 microgram per cubic meter. And next part is the virus and bacteria sampling. So we, as I mentioned, we teamed up with our colleagues from University of Laval and also our Medical Device Research Center. We used the two different types of sampling method in the school classrooms. One is the more higher flow rate, SAS 3100, to do a short-term sampling, which is half an hour sampling in each classroom, and we use a lower IOMs, the gelatin filter-based sampling, and at a lower flow rate and less noisy, and we did at least 5 hours of sampling from all the classrooms. And one of the reasons we use the two is we also wanted to compare these two samplers. Are we going to get similar results? And those are targeted viruses we selected to sample based on the demographic of the occupants in the school, in those two schools. And we also have the detection limit here listed, and we didn't actually getting any positive samples of those viruses. And then we did other bacteria and the biomarkers, and we do detect some positive samples, and the following slides will be primarily focusing on those results. So the positive samples, the epidermides, the bacteria we sampled from 2 schools. On the left side is the intervention school. On the right side is the control school. And as you can see, we normalized the positive samples for the number of students in the classroom, and those 2 schools with and without portable air cleaners, they showed actually quite similar results. And then we have the second hominid, the bacteria, and you can see the 2 schools also showed quite similar results. And then we have the box plot of the samples of both bacteria, and you can see really the difference in terms of the portable air cleaner, the impact on the number of positive samples of bacteria samples in the 2 schools quite minimum. So in this slide, it's really we want to see, based on the positive sample of bacteria we sampled, is there any difference between these 2 groups with positive sample, without positive sample? Do we see a change or big difference in their air exchange rate? We actually didn't see much big difference. And in terms of the PM 2.5 level, we also didn't see a big difference between the 2 groups. And since I think we're really running out of time, so I'm going to quickly go through this. And this is the data, illness due to, no, absenteeism due to illness. And this data was shared. The school board has actually have a quite complicated, sophisticated system to track the absenteeism due to different reasons. So they kindly helped us to extract the data over the years, and they can segregate it by day, by school classroom, and then we aggregated them, and you can see control school versus intervention school. We would see it's very little difference in terms of the absenteeism due to illness during the study period between September 2023 and June 2024. So here's a quick summary of all the findings. So I don't want to read all of that. Basically, indoor CO2 concentration really depends on the presence of occupants. And the PM level in the school classrooms, we see it's significantly impacted by the outdoor sources. And if we do want to use PM level to represent airborne transmission risk in the real world buildings, I would strongly suggest we have to monitor outdoor concentration as well. And the portable air cleaner didn't appear to have a significant impact in the intervention school compared to the control school in terms of bacteria and virus sample detected, and also didn't have a significant impact on the absenteeism due to illness in the school. So that wraps up my presentation. Thank you for your attention. We'll be happy to address your questions.